Since 1948, the Arab world has repeated one word like a sacred spell: Nakba, the catastrophe. But the catastrophe they're talking about isn't war, defeat, or destruction. It's something far more permanent. The end of the fantasy that Jews would remain powerless, and the total humiliation the Arab world suffered from losing a war by a bunch of Jews who had a minimal army. Because the Jews showed the Arabs that even with minimal support from the world, hardly any weapons and no organized army, they can still kick their ass. I know, shocking. Let's get this straight from the beginning. The word Nakba, as a political concept, was invented not in 1917, not in 1936, not during the British Mandate. It was coined in August 1948 by a Syrian academic named Constantine Zurayk in a short book called Mana al-Nakba, The Meaning of the Disaster. Zurayk wasn't a refugee. He wasn't from Palestine. He was an Arab communist and nationalist intellectual from Beirut, and when he used the word Nakba, he wasn't describing a genocide. He was describing an ego collapse. Zionism, he wrote, is not just another colonial problem. It is an imperialist project whose goal is to exchange one people for another. Sounds familiar? This is where everything started. As any good communist would do, he called Zionism the most dangerous threat in the region. Not because of tanks or soldiers, but because it succeeded. It wasn't communism, and it was Jewish. Zurayk's point was sharp. Jews had built a modern state, and Arabs had not. He warned that the Arab world was backward, fragmented, tribal, and unprepared. He wanted the Arabs to progress and develop, so they could defeat Israel. But guess what happened next? By the 1950s, Nakba wasn't just a word. It became a propaganda weapon fused with the only thing the Arabs know how to do best: cry like little babies for losing wars they started. The Palestinians took Zurayk's secular concept and fused it with Islamism, tribal mythology, and permanent grievance, what they love calling the victim card. And just like that, the Nakba became a holy day of mourning for a war they started and lost. Let's get forensic. Jews lost 6 million in the Holocaust and rebuilt a country. Arabs lost a war they launched and turned it into a 75-year industry that kept them until today in the 7th century, no matter what weapons they had. Because all they care about is their childish dignity more than actually becoming advanced. That's the difference. Zurayk wrote, "This catastrophe is a result of the corruption of our structure, the confusion of our thought." But nobody in the Arab world listened. They just kept the word and threw out the meaning. They built refugee camps, not cities, because they were too busy killing each other and crying about Jews. They built UNRWA, not reform. They made up Nakba Day, not a future. And then came the gaslighting. Suddenly the people who declared war, who rejected partition, who allied with Hitler, who tried to drown Israel in blood, started saying, "The Jews are playing the victim card." The Arab world didn't just play the victim card. They printed the entire deck, passed it down through generations, and got the world to play along. Meanwhile, Jews built a superpower on a piece of land the size of New Jersey, and the Arabs keep crying in Europe, in Arab exile, everywhere, playing victim roles in the theater of eternal suffering. The Nakba was not a Holocaust. It was not an ethnic cleansing. It was not genocide. It was a word invented by a communist Arab to describe a failed Arab war of aggression, spun into a myth of holy victimhood. So Arab of them. Why Lee, why Lee? And the only reason this word still has power today is because Western academics, NGOs, and media parrots keep swallowing the lie, while the Arab world continues to burn history in order to blame Israel for its failures. None of them actually bothered to actually read Zurayk's 88-page book. Zurayk gave them a mirror. They turned it into a coffin. And every year they bury themselves deeper in the fantasy that Jews won 1948 because they had genies and Talmudic spells. But it's not 1948 anymore. It's 2025. But for the Arabs, it's always 1948. That's why they keep bringing it up. By the way, how's Palestine doing? Need some chicken soup to ease your pain?